If you want to break into project management, you need to know that the process is not the same as for any other office role. There's a certain structure and several different rounds in which the hiring managers expect the candidates to respond in a specific way. Now, I know this can seem daunting if you've never done it before, but to make sure you ace your interview, you need to prepare accordingly. In this video, we'll look at the 4 different stages of a PM interview. We'll look at different interview questions that I had to solve during my own PM interviews and how to answer them in detail. Let's get into it. A PM interview process is usually structured into 4 different stages depending on the size of the company. The first stage is the HR screening interview. Usually you would go through an HR screening interview first, which can be a call or a meeting from anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes. Here, the recruiter is vetting your baseline qualifications as well as your overall cultural fit to the company. This step of the process is similar to other positions. Recruiters usually have a checklist from the hiring manager where if the role requires specific years of experience or certain certifications, this is the moment the recruiter verifies this with you. So be ready to confirm certain years of experience, a certain methodology, or a certain certification like the CAPM that you might have done. At this stage, when they ask you cultural questions, just keep your answers short and punchy because this is just a high-level check. In addition, they might ask you for your salary expectation, not to waste anyone's time, just in case there's a big mismatch. To prepare for this, you can just research the market rate of a PM with your experience level in 2026. If they ask you, you can say, based on the responsibilities of this role and the current market, I'm looking for a range of X to Y, but I'm flexible depending on the total benefits package. Don't state a concrete number here just yet, because they might nail you down on it. Instead, give a range and discuss the final amount in later interview rounds. And lastly, in this stage, they might ask you about the logistics, so your earliest possible start date or relocation requirements and so on. My advice, be honest here. If they're looking for a candidate to come into the office 3 times a week and you want a 100% remote position, or they want you to relocate and you cannot because you have family responsibilities, it's better to find out now. The second stage, the behavioral questions. In the second round, they will most likely be testing your behavior and communication skills. In my previous interviews, this was a 60-minute interview with the hiring manager, as well as a senior project manager from the team. As project management fundamentally is people management, most likely what they will be testing here is your emotional intelligence, your communication, as well as your social interaction skills. Now let's go over 5 very common questions and how to answer them properly. What matters most here is how you answer the questions. You don't just want to ramble on without a structure or a clear start and end point. To answer the questions in a structured way, you can use the STAR method. S stands for situation. So you want to first of all explain what is happening. Then you move on to T, the task. So identify the task at hand that evolves from the situation. A for action, so what would you do in this given situation? And then you end with R, what is the eventual result? Let's see how this could look like based on an actual interview question that I had. Question number 1, how do you handle conflict within your project team? Here they're looking to evaluate your emotional intelligence. You want to demonstrate that you move the conversation away from who is right to what is actually best for the project. You aren't the judge. You're the person who brings the right tools and methods to the table so that the team can reach consensus themselves. Try and find a situation from your previous job or your studies where you actually demonstrated how you handle conflict, even if that was not in the project management context. Using the STAR method, start with the situation. For example, let's say you worked in a customer service role and this is the given situation. Our call center's quality assurance lead and our supervisors were in a heated disagreement. Quality assurance wanted longer scripted calls to ensure 100% accuracy, while supervisors wanted shorter calls to reduce the wait queue. Now you presented the interviewers with a conflict situation. What was the task at hand for you? I needed to facilitate a resolution because the tension was causing confusion for the agents and hurting our overall performance metrics. What did you do in order to solve it? I acted as a neutral facilitator, shifting the debate from opinions to user data. I pulled reports showing that after the 5-minute mark, customer satisfaction dropped regardless of accuracy. I proposed a pilot for a hybrid script that prioritized the most critical data points first. By centering the conversation on customer impact rather than internal quotas, the team reached a consensus. And finally, what was the outcome? We implemented the hybrid flow. Average handle time dropped by 45 seconds and our QA scores actually improved because the scripts were more focused. Question number 3, how do you handle difficult or disengaged stakeholders? This tests your people management skills. Here your answer should show that you can tailor your communication. Don't treat a CFO the same way you treat a lead developer in your communication. Show the interviewer that first you identify what keeps that stakeholder up at night, whether that's ROI or legal compliance or security risk, and then adjust your reporting to address those concerns. Let's say you worked in marketing previously, and a specific situation that you can give as an example to this answer could be this. During a 2026 rebranding campaign, our head of legal became a major bottleneck. He was skeptical of our new community-driven social strategy, fearing it opened the brand too much to liability, and he eventually stopped responding to our creative approval requests. What did you have to do in that case? I had to re-engage him to avoid a hard block on our launch date, as we couldn't go live without his department's sign-off. Okay, then what did you do? I tailored my communication to his specific concerns. Instead of sending him creative decks and vibe boards, I created a weekly compliance and risk dashboard. This report highlighted the specific moderation tools and community guidelines we had built to mitigate risk. I also invited him to a beta test of our response protocol. By speaking his language of liability and protection, I turned his skepticism into active collaboration. And what was the result? He became our biggest advocate on the executive board, and his input helped us create a pre-approved content library that sped up our future campaign launches by 40%. Question number 4. Describe a moment of success and how you achieved it. Here they want to see that you can understand that success means having an actual business impact or adding value to a business and not just finishing a task. Because many candidates here make the mistake of saying the project was a success because we managed to finish on time. To a hiring manager, that just means you're doing your job. A great answer connects your work to the company's success. Did you increase revenue? Did you improve user retention? Did you save any costs? As another example how to answer this question, let's say that your background was in recruiting. In early 2025, our company was struggling to scale our engineering department. We had a high volume of applicants, but only 2% were making it through the final interview stage. What was your task here? My task was to increase the offer acceptance rate while reducing the time to hire, as the long delay was causing us to lose top-tier talent to faster competitors. So, what did you do? I led a process audit and identified a major friction point, a redundant technical screening that took 5 days to grade. I coordinated with the engineering leads to replace it with a real-time collaborative coding session. By streamlining the funnel and implementing an automated scheduling tool, I transformed a 4-week hiring cycle into a 10-day experience for the candidate. What's the result, the bottom line, or the so what for the company? This led to a 60% increase in offer acceptance and saved the engineering team 20 hours of interview time per month. Question number 5. How do you prioritize tasks to meet deadlines? Here, the interviewer wants to hear that you have a repeatable logic for making choices. They don't just want to hear, I picked the most important thing. Here it's best to name drop certain frameworks like Eisenhower matrix or the Moscow framework to show that you can make an objective database prioritization and choice rather than just going with who's screaming the loudest. For this question, let's say you come from a background in the creative industry and you want to again give a specific example of how you handled the prioritization of tasks. So what's the situation? In my role as a creative lead, I was hit with 30 plus simultaneous requests, from minor social media edits to a high-stakes website redesign, all with conflicting ASAP deadlines. What did you have to do? I had to decide which tasks would actually drive our launch goals and which were just noise that would distract the team from delivering on time. What did you do? I applied the Eisenhower matrix to categorize the backlog. I sat down with the department heads to separate what was urgent and important, like fixing a broken checkout button, from what was merely urgent but not important, like a last-minute request for an internal slide deck. By visualizing the work this way, I was able to delegate the minor tasks and ruthlessly deprioritize projects that didn't align with our quarterly growth metrics. What was the result? We delivered the 5 highest impact projects on time. This resulted in a 25% jump in user engagement during launch week, and I reduced the team's overtime by 15% because we stopped chasing low-value distractions. These are very common questions that you might be asked in a PM interview. But don't be scared, because you can write down your answers to these questions before you get to the interview using the STAR method. Learn it, prepare it, practice it with other people so that you come prepared to the interview and know what to say. Because it's very unlikely that in a stressful situation, you will just come up with all of these situations on the spot. So come prepared. Once you made it through stage 1 and 2 of the PM interview process, you're going to move to the third stage, the case study. This is the part where most people get really nervous. It can either be a 60-minute in-person interview or a 48-hour take-home assignment. Here, the company isn't just looking for the right answer. They're looking for your process. They want to see how you tackle a real-world messy problem and put it in a structured way without spiraling. Personally, for case studies, I usually use a shorter, revised version of the STAR method, which you can also use alternatively. I call it the SCS framework. It's the situation, the challenge, and the solution. So first of all, I rephrase the situation given to me in my own words to make sure that I understood it. Then I'll identify the core challenge and finally present the interviewers with the solution that I came up with. It's punchy, fast, and it keeps you from rambling in an unstructured way. Let's look at a case that I actually had to solve, but keep in mind this is more for a mid to senior PM role. For me, this was a take-home assignment, which I had 48 hours to solve, and I had to prepare a short slide deck to present my ideas. The case was: a traditional bank wants to digitalize their product offer to be more attractive to Gen Z customers within a strict 6-month window. How would you structure a project to achieve this? Using my SCS framework, situation, challenge, solution, on the first slide, I rephrased the situation from my own point of view. So if I understand this correctly, we're looking at a traditional bank that needs to pivot fast to capture a younger demographic, Gen Z customers, who expect a seamless mobile-first experience. We have a hard 6-month deadline to go from traditional to digital ready without breaking any regulations. If they ask you to prepare a short slide deck for this, or even if they don't, but it's a take-home assignment and you want to make a good impression, then it's best to actually prepare some slides. You can simply use an AI tool and help you visualize this kind of quote into different graphics, using screenshots, statistics, and so on to make it visually more appealing than just putting text on a slide. What I added here to rephrasing the situation that they gave me was, for example, the context of Gen Z wanting seamless and mobile-first experience. Also, given the context of banking, I added that we needed to make all of this project come true within the given boundaries of regulations, as banking is a very regulated industry. Then I went on to iterate the challenge. The real challenge here isn't just building an app. It's the speed to market versus security trade-off. We need to make sure we hit the market fast so we can compete with our fintech competitors while also navigating the slow-moving world of the banking compliance. If we move too slow, we risk losing the market and our potential first-mover advantage. If we move too fast and have a security breach, we do not only risk the bank's reputation, but we also risk getting big fines. Now comes the main part, the solution. Here I detail my structured approach to this project. In the initiation phase, I would set up a business case to map budget of the project, I would include a risk assessment and document it in a log, and finally, I would map stakeholder responsibilities using a RACI metrics. Then, I would structure this project into 4 parallel work streams and define major milestones along the 6-month project roadmap. The potential for work streams, for example, could be Stream 1, compliance and legal. We start this on day 1 because it's the longest lead time and the foundation of our work. Stream 2, UX and UI design, focusing specifically on features that Gen Z actually want. Stream 3, technical infrastructure, using a mobile middleware approach so we don't have to rebuild the entire bank's core backend just to launch an app. Stream 4, marketing. Make sure to include the marketing team to plan a campaign around our launch, mainly on our socials to reach our audience. Then I would also include what kind of key milestones I would define along the 6-month roadmap. For example, key milestone 1 could be stakeholder and legal alignment. This is where we get the green light from the legal and compliance teams on the core concept so we don't hit any roadblocks halfway through. Milestone 2, feature prioritization and UX freeze. So we take all that customer feedback, figure out which 3 to 5 features actually move the needle, and lock it in the designs so the developers can start building. Milestone 3, MVP development and technical sync. This is the heavy lifting phase where the core product is built and we ensure all the different systems and APIs are actually talking to each other. Milestone 4, marketing content and beta prep. While the developers are squashing bugs, we're getting the marketing plan, landing pages, and how-to content ready for our first group of beta testers. Milestone 5, the big bang launch and review. We push the product live to the public, monitor the data, and then sit down as a team to figure out what worked, what didn't work, and what we're building next. Lastly, I also want to mention the methodology I would propose to use during this 6-month project. I would use an agile method and work in 2-week sprints to make sure we get the speed while integrating potentially changing customer needs along the way. We have several different check-ins scheduled along the roadmap with the project team and sponsor to integrate feedback and make sure we can discuss any bottlenecks. This approach shows the hiring managers clearly that you know how to structure and approach a project. If you were to be hired the next day and a situation like this actually came up, they would know, okay, we can put this person in charge and they know how to do it, they know what steps to follow, and we can fully rely on them. Now, the fourth and final stage, the vibe check. As I mentioned in the beginning, the stages of the PM interview process depend also on the size of the company. So, for example, it could also be that you have another round in between where you talk to senior executives or the CEO, so they kind of want to get to know you. I make a separate video on this, on how to answer interview questions with senior executives in the final round. More likely, and also in my case, I had a vibe check with the team. So you've passed the technical part, they kind of know you can do the job, and now they want to know, is this person likable? Can we see ourselves working with them on a day-to-day? This is usually a 30 to 45-minute call, for example, with other project managers or developers, UX leaders, marketers, and so on. For this stage, I'd recommend be yourself as much as possible. Take it easy. Don't try and come across as a know-it-all because it will just seem arrogant, but instead, come across as if you're genuinely interested in getting to know that other person. The PM interview process is a marathon. But if you stay structured, use frameworks, and prepare, practice, you will be fine. If you want more one-on-one guidance or have specific questions for your situation, you can book a free discovery call with me. I'll put the link in the description down below. Now, I hope this helps. Hit the like button, let me know in the comments what you think about it, and subscribe to follow along for more content like this. Go get that offer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.